This is Chris Doleman, and you're watching Class Act Sports.
This is Victor Green. You're watching Class Act Sports. I'm here today with future Hall of Famer Chris Doleman. I'm glad you can join us today, Mr. Doleman.
Thank you, Vic.
Appreciate
Good
it.
seeing you, brother.
Good, absolutely. You know, we talked to many guys about that transition out of the game. How was that for you?
Leaving the game really wasn't that hard for me. Played 15 years, enjoyed my time that I played, and I chose to leave at the time that I left. I played, my last game was January 6, 2000. I said, this is it, walked away and never looked back. I think it's different when you're cut or you want to still play and nobody wants to pick you up. That's when it's really hard. But if you can pick your time and say, it's time to go, just go ahead and do it.
I did say future Hall of Famer. You've been out now for 10 years or so. 150 sacks. John Randall, a former teammate of yours, got Hall of Fame this year. Why do you think it's taking so long for you with numbers better than John? You still haven't got the recognition.
I've learned through this process, the Hall really doesn't have much to do with your numbers. It doesn't have much to do with your numbers. It has a lot to do with where you are as far as if you're on television, your popularity. I was told once that, they want to make sure that they have guys in there that will create interest into the Hall, which is really sad because, you got guys who are, and I'm talking modern day players that, for example, I sit at 150 and a half sacks in 14 years. I played 15 years, but, I played this position for 14 years. I'm not in. But you put in a guy who has, who played 15 years and have 102 sacks or 103 sacks. And it's like, well, what is the criteria? And, we went through the process. We measured up the criteria and we tried to make sure that we were as qualified as possible. But, you just have to come to the realization that, just not for you. You'll get in whatever you get in, or you might not get in. So, I don't let that define me. I've had a good run. The numbers that I posted and the things that I've done, they can't erase. And it's in a group of people's hands that, frankly, probably shouldn't have that much power.
Some may say, that you've been outspoken, maybe controversial, wasn't, very responsive to the media. Maybe one of the reasons why you haven't got into the Hall of Fame. What's your thoughts on that?
None of that's true because, one, never got any off-field activities, never had any problems there. I did my job, went home to my family, came back and worked. I qualified out of 236 games. I played in 232, starting 232. It was never a situation where that, and I realized the media had a job to do. So I was always, partial, as far as part of the game that, you have to talk to them. I think they're just excuses. I mean, how does Michael Irvin go in before Art Monk?
Sure.
I mean, you look what Art Monk has done in his body of work over the years that he's played, and when he left the game, he was the #1 wide receiver. He was above and beyond Jerry Rice, all those guys. He just finally got in. You look at Henry Eller still waiting to get in. You look at Andre Reed still waiting to get in. There's a lot of great players who are out there, and I think that the people who are voting aren't realizing just the backlog that they're creating. I'm gonna give you a great example. This year, you got Marshall Faulk, you got Jerome Bettis, you got Curtis Martin, who you know very well, and you got Deion Sanders. All these guys, 4 guys, they're up this year for the first time. Maybe one will get in. All of them deserve to be in.
Sure, absolutely.
All of them deserve to be in. But you can't put all 4 of them in. You definitely can't do that. And when you can only put in, the most you can put in is 7, and you're putting in 3 guys, you put in 2 guys, you put in 4 guys. I mean, it just messes up the flow of everything. And I think, as far as I'm concerned, one of the things that really hurt me, I never won a championship. And that should have nothing to do with it. Because if you look at the guys who were in the Hall, most of them won a Super Bowl. But none of them won it by themselves.
You played linebacker in college. Who decided, or when did you decide, or when they decided to switch you to a defensive end?
I was the #1 linebacker coming out. I was class of Jack Del Rio and Dwayne Bickett and I'm trying to think, Freddie Joe Nunn. I mean, they had a pretty good class of guys who were coming out. You know, I tested well in the combine, was coming out, and I went to the Senior Bowl. Floyd Peters, who was you know, who's passed since, asked me to play defensive line. I'm like, dude, I'm getting ready to go into the draft as a linebacker. Why would I want to switch positions at this point? And I just didn't feel comfortable doing that, didn't do it. I was drafted by Minnesota as a linebacker. They had a guy by the name of Matt Blair, who was, you know, all-pro and, you know, just a great player. But, you know, he was 36 years old at the time, and they were looking at somebody maybe who can come in and kind of spare him and eventually move to that position. They drafted me. And through that time, you know, I was just playing at the linebacker position. We made a run for the playoffs. We had some defensive linemen hurt, and they asked me, say, hey, look, would you mind getting involved? Would you mind playing defensive end? Went out there, did it, had a lot of success. It really got me back to doing what I was doing in college. We ran a 3-4, but, you know, I was always that blitzing end. Right. So I'm always the one who's rushing the quarterback. And, you know, drafted by Minnesota, 3-4, they got me dropping curl to flat, hooks, and doing all this thing, covering guys up the seam. And it really never got me playing the way that I could have played. My second year in the league, they changed staffs. Floyd Peters come in. He says, aha, I got you now. You know, would you be interested in playing defensive end now? I moved down. My first year I played it, I made the Pro Bowl. The second year I made the Pro Bowl. Third year I led the league. I had a lot of success at that position, but it got me back to doing things that I could do. And I was big enough that I could, you know, stand over there and play over a tackle and, you know, and hold my own.
Playing linebacker and then being switched to a defensive end in the NFL, obviously that was a size difference. Mm-hmm. You know, when you talk about that now, you talk about guys maybe 235, then get switched to defensive end at 235. You can't play that. How were you able to play defensive end?
Well, when I came in, I was 6'6", I was 250.
Okay, you're at the size. Okay.
that was my rookie size.
Okay,
when I came in.
That makes sense.
So to get to my first year, I think at defensive end, I played at 65. Then within a year or two, I was playing around 275, 280.
Oh, okay.
So I mean, I was always big enough to play against a, you know, big offensive lineman. And, you know, but, you know, my linebacker training, you know, made me prepared for my defensive end position because I was always in much better condition than a normal defensive lineman because all the running you do in the secondary, you know, as a linebacker.
Right. What's some of the tough tackles you had to go up against back then? Well,
I would definitely say Gary Zimmerman. You know, who's in the Hall of Fame, Anthony Munoz. Those are guys that, you know, they were really measuring sticks. They were testers. Those guys, if you could play and do well against those guys, I mean, these guys were literally the best in the game. And, you know, thank God that, you know, I was able to live up to that test. I mean, I've had success against both of those guys, and they're dear friends today. Chris Hinton. I mean, Chris Hinton's, I mean, you're talking about a guy who should be in the Hall of Fame. I mean, this guy made the Pro Bowl in 4 different positions, you know, on the offensive line. Wow. And, I mean, just a great player. But those were the kind of guys that tested you and made you, you know, raise your game, because if not, you know, you would disappear out there on the field.
You was drafted by Minnesota, first-round draft pick, 4th overall. Mm-hmm. That's pretty good. You played Minnesota for 11 years. How tough it was for you to leave Minnesota? Well,
you know, back in the day, we didn't have much choice. It wasn't a thing that you left. Minnesota traded you away. I was traded down here to Atlanta. And when I was traded to Atlanta, it was, you know, I had a choice between Philadelphia and Atlanta. Dennis Green came in. He wanted to change the direction of the team. We had great players. Minnesota had been known for years for their defense. We had Keith Millard. He got rid of. Joey Browner. He sent to Tampa Bay. Keith went to Philadelphia. You had Jesse Solomon and David Howard went to Dallas, and they did the big Herschel Walker trade, and they did a lot of this stuff. I mean, the team was really, put through a lot. And as far as their losing their identity, it was totally gone. So, they made this big push on, we're going to have so many great offensive players, we're just going to outscore people. And that wasn't the key. That wasn't the secret. You need to have somebody that can stop these people. So, when that happened, it kind of put me in a position where okay, I'm down here in Atlanta. What do you do? I'm playing with a bunch of guys that, that they didn't have the same mentality and the same frame of mind that how I played in Minnesota. So I ended up playing here for 2 years. I knew that this wasn't the place that I wanted to, finish my career, and I got a chance to become a free agent and moved on. But one of the things I am very proud of, Victor, I played for 3 different teams, made the Pro Bowl on 3 different teams. So three different systems that, you said, okay, this guy, let's put him in this system here. He performed. Okay, let's take him out of this and put him in this here. He still performed. So, those little things like that I'm very proud of. Right. Because, I think there's only been 6 players or 5 players in the history of the league to ever do that.
Well, definitely shows your versatility. You was in Atlanta for 2 years, mm-hmm. Then you went out to San Francisco. Mm-hmm. You were very successful there. George Seifert, recently passed. How was that for you? I know you had a chance to play under him and heard a lot of great things about him. What was your thoughts on playing under him and also on his passing?
Well, it's George was one of those coaches that it was all about the team. Every coach says it's all about the team, but I remember we were playing. We had a long weekend. It was like we played on Monday night, and we were off for a few days. And I asked him, I said, "Hey, can I get a break and go home? My family's in Atlanta and see him." He said, "You know what, Chris? I would love to do that, but we want to keep everybody here in town. We got practice. We all have family that we're apart from, and this is what I think is best for the team." I did not like that answer because, I felt that I was giving up a lot to come out there and play because I left my family back in Atlanta. But I realized that what he was doing at that particular time was really building the camaraderie and keeping guys where that focus, this is what we're here for. You didn't need to have guys in the middle of the season taking vacations like they do now. You get guys now that get a bye week, and the first thing they do is like, well, I think I'm going to go to Mexico, or I'm going to go to, this place here. And what ended up happening, you end up getting yourself in trouble. Right. So, with that said, I realized the importance of their system, how important it is to have everybody around and working. They didn't work us very hard there. Right. But, and when I say very hard, as far as pads every day and pounding on each other. On game day, they wanted you to perform at your best. Right.
Well, we saw that with Tony Romo and going away to work the Caribbeans and came back and lost the playoff game and took a lot of slack for that. I touched on earlier about you being a first-round draft pick, mm-hmm. and the money back then obviously is not what it is today.
No.
What are your thoughts on a rookie pay scale? Do you think there's a need for one, or you think guys should? We were talking to Garrison earlier. He said, "Hey, guys, mm-hmm. go out and get their money." What are your thoughts? Do that need to be one? Because, let's be honest, if you're in the league for 9 years and you making X and you got a rookie coming in and making $40 million and hadn't played a down in the league, touch on that.
I think there should be a rookie scale. I think it should be like baseball, or it should be like, you play 3 years.
Basketball
then
as well.
Basketball, and you go to arbitration. Then once you go to arbitration, you say, okay, this is the body of work I've done in the last 3 years. What am I worth?
Right.
Absolutely. And at that point in time, a team can sit up and say, okay, we can afford him or we can't afford him. You got a situation right now where that, they're paying Brett Favre $16 million.
Plus.
If he'd won 11 games, he'd have made up to 20.
Right.
But $16 million to play, and they only won 3 games. Well, what does Adrian Peterson do when he sits up and say, hey, look, well, you know what? I know you can afford to pay that kind of money. That's what I want.
Right.
And, I'm a big part of this team. What does Percy Harvin do? What does their next quarterback do? So I understand this is an unrestricted year, but you set a precedent, and it makes it very, very, very difficult to tell a guy no who has nothing but upside and who's been your workhorse.
Right. We're going to stay in the league, and it's a 2-part question here. One, what do you think about the league now? With the quarterback hits and the helmet to helmet. Also with players lockout. Do you think there will be a players lockout for next year?
No, because it'd be too much money lost between the two organizations. One thing I know about the NFL, the owners, they're greedy. They're not going to sit around. They're not going to sit around and let billions of dollars, pass by every week for the simple fact that, hey, look, we just got these guys locked out and we're trying to, quote unquote, break these guys. I think that the game has become over officiated. First of all, football in its original state was a great game. Now you have a thing where okay, what's an interception? What's a fumble? Pass interference. And when you start to move the pendulum to favor the offense because you want to see more scoring,
right.
But you want to handicap the defense because we don't want them to hurt our offensive players. What has happened is that, okay, you can't hit the quarterback. So, it's basically become 7-on-7 in the secondary. So the guys say, okay, well, since I can't hit this guy who's throwing the ball, the next guy who touches it, I'm going to blow him up.
Right.
And that's what they're doing.
Right.
But understand this here. A hit just doesn't come one way.
Sure.
The guy who's hitting you, he also feels it.
Right.
So if he's willing to risk his body to put a lick on you, I mean, that's just part of the game. So I think if they got back to the Sandlot or when we started playing Pop Warner football, those rules, the ground can't cause a fumble. The ball touched the ground, but he had control. I mean, all these things are just variations of rules, and it's really become over officiated.
Right. Well, you talked about the owners being greedy, but
Mm-hmm.
you got a lot of players out there that making a whole lot of money.
Yeah.
10, 15, $20 million.
Mm-hmm.
What are their? Do you think they're going to be susceptible to want to get a deal done, or you think they're going to try to leave it up and play hardball and try to see if the owners are cracked?
Well, I think we have to have a rookie scale. To pay a guy $50 million, then you have to put him out there, and his success is going to be marginal, is ridiculous.
Right.
If he's worth $50 million today, what was Joe Montana worth? And as this continues to escalate, where the guys are going to say, you know what, give me only X amount of dollars, as far as salary, I'll take 15% of the team because the money's going to be so big.
Right.
So it's just it's just not a good scenario. I think that you have to have some kind of scale, and I think like I said, the arbitration or whether you have to prove what you can do and what you have done. And if they try to limit your plays, because sometimes teams will do that so they won't have to play.
Right, absolutely.
If you only play 15 plays and out of the 15 plays, more than half of them were positive and plays that impact the game, well, guess what? That guy still he's a playmaker.
Right, absolutely.
I don't think if you take a guy like Troy Polamalu, you say, okay, Troy, we don't want to pay you a bunch of money this year, so we're going to limit your play time. I guarantee that guy's going to make plays regardless.
Right.
That's just what he does.
Right.
But paying a guy on potential and maybe and he might turn out to be something, I don't agree with that.
You got some great defensive ends. Just like I said, yourself, you play defensive end. You got Freeney, you got Peppers, you got Mathis. You got a lot of good defensive ends out there. Do any of them resemble Chris Doleman when he played?
I
Or who
like
do you
Mario Williams.
Mario Williams.
I like Mario Williams. And I tell you why I like Mario Williams. Big guy. He plays hard. He can play, he can stand up against the run. He can also stand in there and rush the passer. Physically, he is a specimen. I know that if I had a short, squatty tackle, I really just I don't know if you can really handle me, dude. I don't know if you're just not enough for you to do that.
Right.
So, I don't care how strong he was or whatever the case may be, I always felt that, I had the advantage. I had the leverage. When I was playing against a guy who was, a big, solid guy who could move, man, you're going to have to work. And the two guys I told you that I thought were, or the three guys I thought were the best to play the position, they were all big, solid guys that had great feet.
Right.
So I do like Mario Williams a lot, though.
Do you think he's done enough to exemplify being the #1 overall pick? Because that was a big controversy with him and Reggie Bush. Everybody wanted him to go to Houston.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think, have you followed Mario enough to say, hey, he exemplified, that's why he's been a #1 pick?
Well, I tell you what, he's had a lot of success. He's played better than I thought he would play. I was one of those people who said, why wouldn't you take Reggie Bush? But the Texans felt that this is what they needed, and it was a great choice for them. Because, Reggie, has played well at times, but, there was something that they seen in Reggie Bush that, I didn't see. And, he gets hurt. He's not a big guy. And, will he go and get the tough yards?
Right.
So, those things like that, teams look at very carefully. This isn't rocket science. You don't have to spend millions of dollars to figure out if a guy can play or not. Just turn on the film and look at it. Right. And you can just go from there.
As we mentioned, you played for Minnesota, Atlanta, and San Fran. Mm-hmm. Atlanta's doing very well. San Fran and Minnesota is struggling a little bit. Do you think Atlanta has what it takes to go to the Super Bowl? And also, the two teams that struggle in Minnesota and San Fran, do they have what it need to make a playoff push?
I think Minnesota's DOA. Too many games, not enough time. This is week 11. I don't think they can really recover and sustain a run that will put them in the playoffs, or even put them in a position where they could even. Well, they got to worry about winning next week. Right. It's just that serious for them.
Sure.
I didn't agree with the choice of, sending players down to recruit Brett to come back. I understand Brett's position, because if they offer me that kind of money, I'm going to go. Wow. Even as old as I am today. You know what I'm saying? And I'm going to give them the same results. With that in mind, it's terrible. I think San Francisco, they spent a lot of money and a lot of time on a guy, Alex Smith. Can't play dead. The guy it's like you're looking at him, and I've never seen a head coach get on a quarterback like I seen Mike Singletary get on him. I think with the Troy Smith.
He's playing well right now.
He's playing well, and he gives that team the best chance of winning. He's a Heisman Trophy winner. Even though he's not the first overall pick, this guy here with some time, I think, can really help out this team. I thought, I thought if San Francisco would have taken either Michael Vick or Donovan McNabb when they had the availability, they would have been a much, much better team.
Okay. And Atlanta?
I think Atlanta is a good football team. I don't know if they have the maturity yet to win a Super Bowl. I think Matt Ryan's playing exceptionally well. Each year he's getting better and better. He's definitely the future for them. I think their staff that they got there are guys who are very knowledgeable, and that they will be in the hunt. If not, I don't know if they're going to be in this year, but next year and years to come. But I think right now they're just a little young, a little young.
Again, we're talking to Chris Doleman, 8-time Pro Bowler, 6-time All-Pro. I did get that right that time, right?
Yes, you did. That's all right.
Chris, you went to military school.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, and a lot of kids or fathers now are sending their kids to a military school.
Mm-hmm.
What made you go to military school?
Well, you know, first of all, it's just what it says, military school. I had a chance. I had signed, what had happened, I had signed with the University of Temple. And, you know, it was back in the day where that, you know, cheating was, you weren't cheating if you weren't trying.
Right.
I mean,
right.
it was unbelievable. But I had signed with Temple, and they were just giving me so much stuff, and it was just so overwhelming. And you know, my dad told me, he said, if they start buying you now, they'll be buying you the rest of your life. So I thought about it. Looked at the University of Pittsburgh, and it was funny because they said, oh, we're all out of scholarships. They see me playing an All-Star game. They said, we happen to have one left, and I don't know where this one came from. So, you know, it was Hugh Green was there, and I could have went to University of Pittsburgh, you know, at the end of my senior year. But what would happen, I've been watching Hugh play. So, you know, I said, you know what, I'm going to hold off here and buy some time. And I got into Valley Forge Military Academy. And that's, you know, I went there and I did a postgraduate year, which is pretty big on the East Coast. It's, you know, it's pretty much the norm. Did a postgraduate year there. Then I had all kind of, you know, other options to go, but I was, you know, I was pretty much committed to the University of Pittsburgh.
Did it help you? Do you think military, especially for guys that don't know exactly what they want to do, guys that may be getting in trouble a little bit, that just need a little bit more, a little discipline? Did that help you?
It would definitely help me. But you know, Larry Fitzgerald Jr. went there on my recommendation. You know, his dad was looking at, okay, where I want to, you know, where can I send Larry? So that was a good move for him. But the thing is that you know, it can help in all those areas. I mean, you know, thank God I wasn't a troubled kid or anything like that. But you know, I had options. But it gives you that extra year of maturity.
Right.
You know, my son, his senior year, he graduated at 17. I cannot see myself sending him off to college at 17 years old. Right. So you know, we did a postgraduate year with him.
Good. What is Chris Doleman doing today?
Well, right now, I started a company called Forever Stars. It's a charitable auction site. It's a great venture that you know, I sat down with a couple guys and we've been kicking this around, and we felt that you know, this would be a good way to sell memorabilia and help out a lot of different people at the same time. So that's what's been tying up my time right now. You know, we should be going online next month. We'll have a e-commerce site up by then, and we're just plugging forward, moving forward with it.
Great. Is there anything you would like the fans to know, or you want them to know about Chris Doleman?
Yeah, I think you guys need to make sure you tune in to Class Act Sports. Victor and the crew here does a great job. Tune in.
Appreciate it.
Check out Forever Stars.
Check out Forever Stars. We've got Chris Doleman here. We're going to have other guys to follow. Again, thank you, Chris, for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is Victor Green. You're watching Class Act Sport.